I'm Min, and today I'm going to talk about my 10 most disappointing reads of 2018. Of course, it is not the end of 2018, so I might still have a most terrible book ever, but I feel like I won't. These are books that I don't necessarily hate. A lot of them I gave 2 stars, which, I mean, they have some merit, but I wouldn't want to reread them. Some of these I'm very, very harsh on. I laughed out loud reading a few of the reviews I put down for them. Okay, first of all, we have The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Ardeen. I know this one is a well-loved one. I read it in January, and my thoughts on it was as follows. Amazing idea, decent writing, poor execution. It has a lot of things I love about it. It has Russian mythology. It's great. It has beautiful character-driven story. However, that's about where it ends. The sequel does have a girl cross-dressing and being a bandit, so I might continue just for that sake. But for someone who loves character-driven stories, I didn't think that much happened with her. I didn't feel drawn to her character. I didn't feel empathy for her character. She fell into the very stereotypical, like, strong and wild, no one can tame her kind of girl, which is okay, but it's a little cliche unless it's fleshed out, which it wasn't fleshed out, and since I tend to think that those aren't my favorite characters to begin with, then it became very harsh. And then my second one was Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan. This was a disappointment, especially because I had higher expectations because I love Sega and I expected it to be good. It is confusing, it is weird, I don't know what's going on, there's time travel, all kinds of things, and I never felt inspired to read more, and I never felt gripped by the characters. So I read 2 issues, full bind-ups of it, and after that I was like, okay, I'm good. Third was All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is a book that I did not like. In all fairness, I read this while being hospitalized, so maybe it was just like my agony ensued, but it follows an android-like thing. It's a murder bot. He hates all humans, and it's kind of based in this insecurity, but I do not like people that dislike people. It makes me angry. I'm just like, be a decent human android, I don't care. And nothing was explained about the world. All of the secondary characters were introduced in one paragraph. There's like 7 of them. And then nothing is ever explained again. So even though I was like reading it physically and I would go back and like check, like I didn't know who anyone was ever. And I really like the idea of the world run by companies. A show that I really like, Killjoys, is the same kind of idea in world building, but this wasn't explored, so I can't answer anything about this world. And I realized it was a novella, so I should probably have lower expectations, but it was terrible to read, and it was only a novella. Sula by Toni Morrison. This is also a beloved novel, and I really want to like Toni Morrison. I didn't put it on here again because it wasn't a book that I disliked as much, plus I had lower expectations after this book, but I also read Mercy by Toni Morrison. Neither I liked, so maybe it's just her writing style. Again, I didn't feel like I was very gripped into the characters. The main character is beyond selfish. The main character has a best friend for her entire life, and then comes back and, with a whim, cheats with her best friend's husband. And from what I remember, she initiated it. It takes 2 to play, but like, who initiates trying to sleep with their best friend's husband? I had no mercy whatsoever for her. Sure, have sexual liberation, but like, don't screw over your best friend's life. It made me very irritated. I wanted to punch things throughout the entire book. It did have a very interesting social commentary, especially about racism and culture, especially in the Black community in the US, so I did appreciate that. Everything else, though. And then Maximum Ride by James Patterson. I didn't really know anything about James Patterson, which is very surprising because he's a very prolific author. However, my friend recommended the series and it was dreadful. I read 2 books in it. I'm sure most of you have heard about it or you don't really want to care about it. So, moving on. Heart of Darkness. I think my Goodreads says very much what this book is. And what I summed it up was, he goes on a riverboat and says racist things. It's dreadful. I literally remember trying to get through this, and The Bear and the Nightingale at the same time. Both of them for the biennial bibliothon in January, and I was dying. I was so angry. Casino Royale by Ian Fleming. This isn't quite as much of a disappointment. Like, I didn't hate the book. I gave it 2 stars. However, it wasn't that good, and as a book that launched 1,000 ships, like literally such a prolific character, I expected something more from the first novel, like that made him so prolific. It just, there was nothing really to it. Also, it had like the whole second half was just sex, which really surprised me. I was just like, this is not what I signed up for. And King Lear by William Shakespeare. I'm a very avid Shakespeare reader. I read 13 books, I think, by him this year, and this was the last, and I read it in May. So for someone who normally reads like 2 Shakespeare books a month, I haven't read anything since the novel. Not because it was horrid, it does have beautiful writing. It just, nothing about it stood out to me. There was nothing even really that clever. It's about this king and his 2 daughters. I definitely wouldn't be like, I want to reread this. I gave it 2 stars for like literary merit, but it was a huge disappointment, especially for someone who does really like Shakespeare. I have Leviathan by Scott Westerfeld. This is the only book I actually own, but I didn't bother getting it off my shelf. This one is a steampunk set in World War I, and also has a girl cross-dressing and a guy fighting for his throne. That is so awesome. I am a huge buff of World War I history, and I love anything that covers that. However, it did not do it for me. It was boring, and the characters were just so immature for how old they were supposed to be, and nothing was explained. I know, like, info dumping isn't good. Don't info dump. I would info dump if I was writing to readers like me. I want to read an encyclopedia and have like a history book on the series before I start, because I want to know what's going on. And like, sometimes I can be patient, because even though the things aren't all explained, I will wait for them. But when they're not fully explained and I still don't know what these creatures are made of after reading the entire book, I don't know. I'll probably read the second one because it's on my shelves, but definitely not like going high on that list. Be Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge. I should have given up after not liking Crimson Bound, because I didn't like Crimson Bound, but it was all right. This book was horrid. I wrote a terrible review. I kind of feel bad now. I compared it to glorified fanfiction of Once Upon a Time. Maybe that was a little too harsh. I don't remember much about it other than, again, Nyx, the main character, which I wouldn't have been able to tell you until 5 minutes ago, was a hateful and fickle character. She hates everyone. I'm a Slytherin who's like, please, like, at least care about people. Like, I can realize you can disregard them, but like, don't just hate people for no reason. There's a difference between choosing to not respect people's opinions and just despising the world for no apparent reason. It's just like, have the like nice, beautiful, lovely sisters. Sisters are always so nice in YA books, and she's like cruel to her. And there's a line that I said, I quoted in my review, that was like, I now broke the heart of the one girl who loved me. And it's like, why are you just meaninglessly cruel? And it's like, she's not even presented as the anti-hero or this like villain. If she's a villain who's cruel, that's fine, but she's supposed to be the protagonist, and throughout the whole novel she's presented as this person who is supposed to be revered, and they're like, oh, you're so cruel, you're not like the other girls. And it's like, that is not a turn on. That is if someone is treating everyone around crap, especially people that have always been kind to them, no. The reason why I felt it glorified fanfiction of Once Upon a Time was that like a combination of the Beast and Rumpelstiltskin together, which I have a hard time believing she didn't get from Once Upon a Time. That was probably too harsh. I am going to go and think about my favorite books and then film that one so I can be much happier, and you will get that soon. Anyways, hopefully no one hates me now.